Hi everybody, I'm coming to you from the forest, just spending some time by the river in nature, trying to cool down actually, cool down. So on the way here I decided to do a little podcast episode, and the topic of conversation is connection, communication, and I'm moving through some personal frustration with regards to the masculine. And there's an aspect of me that is truly in this moment, in this belief system, or questioning the belief system. Can masculines and feminines be friends? I would hope that the answer is yes. I have always hoped and have proved that the answer is yes, as I have many masculine friends in my space. But I must say I'm moving to a space of through a space of great difficulty here in Austria. And one of the things I'm noticing is that, and I'm going to speak specifically to the masculine here because that's what I'm observing and these are the relationship dynamics I'm in. And there's just a deep, deep struggle around and surrounding communication. And I feel like this has been an old tale that has been told by many women across many timelines for eons and eons. And, you know, as someone that likes to connect in such depth and that has such curiosity and that is adventurous and that likes to dig in and dive deep, I understand that based on stereotypical statistics that might be too much for the masculine. I'm in understanding of that. And so what happens when you are an open-hearted being, an open-hearted soul? You begin to fawn, right? So you kind of adapt your way, you become adaptable, you move into a space where you can camouflage, and all that happens at that point is you end up disappointing yourself. So I've been moving through a process of really trying not to adapt and really trying to present my Christic and Sophianic self as best as possible without being too intense, without laying it on thick, you know, without becoming the meme of that person, you know, who's sharing their spiritual self, their whole self, their full alchemized self with another without trying to freak them out. So there has been an aspect of self-restraint, but not that which causes me to fawn, and not to the extent where I feel like I am doing myself a disservice. What is presenting in my field, however, is that even that level of just a little bit of holding back is just too much for people. The people that I've been dealing with are masculines. And these are masculines that I'm really communicating to in terms of really wanting to open friendship, really trying to find tribe, you know. I've been traveling around for a while and I really want to find a tribe, you know. This is my base country, Austria, although I am in a deep questioning process of surrounding that with God, because I'm asking myself, like, is everything that is resisting me meant to resist me because of the usual things? It's just not in frequency. That which is not in alignment will fall away, all of these things. And yet I have such a draw to this country because of my heritage, you know, and a few that I would call friends, but I feel I'm really having to put myself in a box. And I think a lot of healers, light workers, shadow workers, you know, and I'd love your comments, like, you know, your comments and shares. Like, we keep having to make ourselves smaller, you know, once we've done the shadow work and once we've done our, you know, moved through our core wounds and things, we come in with a pretty strong field. And But because we are in awareness of how to read energy and how others react to that strong field, we may tone it down. And like I said, I've been doing that, but without gaslighting myself. But it's still too much. It's still fucking too much, and it's just really frustrating me. And to be honest, there's a part of it that makes me really, really sad, because all that I want to do is connect. And I don't want to be too much in my headspace and too cognitive and too, because then it feels devious, in not devious in a negative sense, but like, you know, it feels like a master plan, like I'm playing chess with someone else's consciousness, and I don't want to do that either. I want to present myself as natural as possible. I want to present myself in my most organic state. I want to present myself honestly. And what I'm finding is that that level of honesty people are just not used to. And the feedback that comes back to me is like, you're really intense. And it's so interesting, because if I read through conversations to try and observe, I cannot express to you how chilled I am. It's like, you know, in actual fact, these kind of videos allow me to present more authentically, because obviously it's a varied audience, of which some of you I know, some of you I do not know, and that keeps a kind of fluid creative space, because I'm just here in front of a camera, right? And any triggers that are yours to have, and you're seeking this information, you know. So I don't know if I've just got a really bad choice in people. I'd hope that is not the truth, because I have a beautiful tribe, you know, a global tribe online, many that I haven't met. I have a beautiful tribe in South Africa, but I'm really struggling here in Europe, and yeah, it's just, you know, like, for example's sake, today I came to cool off. I could have said, and the other thing that I find is that I'm always the one saying, hey, are you doing anything? Hey, are you doing anything? So from that perspective, it could be seen as intense. But to be honest, I feel like, you know, this is where the values and the Christic values come in. It's like, fucking take a bit of accountability, take responsibility, be an adult, self-parent. It's merely a question. Hey, would you like to do this thing with me? I don't, by posing that question, it does not mean I need to jump into bed with you. It does not mean I am in love with you. It does not mean that I am codependent on you. It does not mean that I have no life without you. What it does mean in my reality is that I'm looking for friendship, I'm seeking connection, I'm looking for adventure to do with someone. I'm in a beautiful forest at the moment. I've been missioning around, you know, alongside the river, and I could have messaged someone, but based on the cause and effect and that which I'm reading, it would be read as, you know, she's being too pushy again. And again, honestly, I do, from an accountability perspective, I will reread messages and I'm like, wow, I am not even diving deep in any way, shape or form. The other aspect why I don't dive too deep is, one, because I know it's intense, but two, because deep diving can be a bit intrusive. I can very easily move into that like psychologist, psychiatrist, facilitator mode, and I don't want to make people feel uncomfortable. And so to a certain degree I am fawning, but there's a conscious awareness there of just really trying to participate, to be present, to be as open-hearted as possible. And so I guess the long and short of this is, beyond words, beyond text, whatever my frequency is emitting is triggering. And the facilitator part of me, Earth mission, ground crew control. You know, I say, okay, awesome, my job is being done. I'm triggering people into looking at their shadows. I'm triggering people into observing why they are resisting me. I am triggering people into observation around their own personal theories, their projections, their perceptions. So the work is getting done, but also I'm just seeking friendship, and it's it just keeps dropping out of my field. And of course, this is where I have to put my big girl panties on and go, all right, we're back to not so much isolation. The victimizer aspect of me would say, okay, fine, I'm back in hermit mode, back in isolation. I'll do everything myself and I'll just work harder. You know, I've been trying to create balance. If you've been watching the other videos, you'll know that that's part of what I've been trying to do as well, is balance things out and not work so much, and be a bit social and participate with others, not only in spiritual communities, not only in containers, but to really be a little bit human. And yeah, it's tough, and I know that I'm not the only light worker that is experiencing this, you know. So I just wanted to talk to that a little bit, and upon walking here thinking about the subject matter of this video, you know, I sent a message to someone that I'm in discussion about this, where I've said your communication has really sucked, and although you are free, and I am an advocate for freedom, freedom does not mean that you get a free pass to bypass on communication. And what freedom is also about is being kind. What freedom is also about is being a better human being. And the communication that I sent that person is that you are not the only one in the equation. There are two in the equation. And what I was sharing with this particular individual was, did it feel right in your heart? All I've ever asked is for you to be in your heart, not to be in a love story and a this and a that, just to be in your heart. Did it and does it feel correct for you in your heart to have ghosted me for this period of time? Then you can answer a simple question, and you can just be honest with yourself. And what I thought about and I said there's two, there's two to this equation, but actually there's a third. And I think this aspect really drives the message home. And the third aspect is God. Right? And however you describe God, if you are describing God as source, if you are describing God as separate from you, if you are describing God as your God source, higher avatar aspect that is embodied, either way, asking that question about the third part of any union, alchemization of any relation, right? Relation with each other. If I bring in God into the conversation and say, if God were the judge of this situation, do you feel God would say that you were in your heart? Do you feel that God would have been happy with the way you have treated another? And I think by doing that, we begin to be able to truly observe our story. Because this is the thing, it's like I can see the stories, and, from a psychic aspect as well, I can perceive a timeline that is just in the future. And I really need to watch myself, because as the creator, I'm able to shift a dynamic energetically for whatever reason. And here's where manipulation of energy could come in. And it's really, again, to simplify, and that's why I said we can get really cognitive in this space, but to simplify, it would be, okay, just be in your heart. No matter the labels, no matter the stories, just communicate from your heart space at any point in time, you know, and that's all I expect. And when I communicate in this way, you know, as in, hey, friend, this is what I expect of friendship. I expect check-ins. I expect you to ask how I am. And just because I'm in expectation of those things, it does not mean that I want to sleep with you. It does not mean that I have further codependent needs and requirements. And just an observation how deep people are in their stories, that it kind of brings me to a space and realization that we've just lost, we're just a little lost, let's call it that. We're lost in our stories. And all I'm ever trying to do when communicating is to be in truth. And that truth is so triggering for some. And this isn't even client work. And again, you know, mentioning this is important because sometimes it's easier for people like me, those who are strong facilitators, to just be with clients and work in that space. Because then there is a set of structures, protocols, procedures. We've worked through aspects of consent. So I'm trying to bring these in such a delicate way into the friendship space so that people are always aware of my honest nature, of my intentions, without trying to be too woo-woo, you know. And the only way you can do that is to be in your heart and be genuine. And again, there's so few that do this without copious amounts of alcohol that, or whatever it is that you believe brings you to a space of being genuine. There's so few that are mirroring that the moment a being sees this and receives it, they don't know what to do with it. And it leaves the other party once again feeling isolated and alienated, fully alienated. And of course, the creator aspect of me, she who is not in victim mode, she who understands that everything I'm experiencing I've created, is now in observation. So me, I am now in observation of, okay, am I supposed to be here? Because we are in a time on this planet at the moment looking to build community. And yet I'm failing in such a let's say a regional sense, a local sense. I'm failing in this task, and I've been giving it opportunity. I've been giving it space. I've really been trying. So is that which I'm receiving back in my field telling me, girl, perhaps these are not your people right now. You know, and I smile now because I know, sorry, I thought I saw a little mushroom. I'm smiling now because I know that there is community around the corner for me, and I guess there's an aspect of me that feels a little afraid to step into it. And when moments of energy rush through me like that, then I feel I'm communicating with God, and that is coming through in that moment to say, yes, Brigitte, you are indeed afraid to go, because you know that what sits on the other side of that is further expansion. I am so sorry to interrupt. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for watching and listening to our Delicately Wild podcast. This is just a short interruption to say, please, from the bottom of my heart, if you could like, share, or do whatever it is that is required on this particular social media platform, I would greatly appreciate it, as this content does kind of get squashed within the algorithms. And the other part of this is to just remind you that I have a beautiful coaching container coming up called the Azurite Temple. If you are interested in expansion, consciousness, existentiality, the nature of this reality, and really digging deep into healing work, uncovering, and mostly embodiment work within a supported community and a high vibrational container, then you might want to touch base with me, and you are free to ask any questions. Thank you so much for your time. Please do enjoy the rest of the podcast. Ciao.
And I guess there's an aspect of me that is trying to create community here in this regional space, as I've called it, because it feels to me perhaps it might slow things down a bit, provide a bit of grounding. I'm moving a lot. So in moments like these, what is required is further clearing work, commanding of space, sitting with the self. So again, by oneself, I'm not saying in isolation, so therefore in communication, in union with God, and becoming clear on questions and answers, because essentially, I've spoken about this many times, but essentially our job is to observe the opening for the highest timeline, right? Observe the opening for the highest timeline. And that can be scary sometimes, and it's why my throat is choking up, because I see myself as progressively moving forward at any point in my life, being a visionary, being an angel, an angelic on this earth. And yet I see the other timeline still fully functioning, maybe not efficiently functioning, maybe not effectively functioning, but still functioning. And this can trick the consciousness into going, okay, well, maybe I can spend a bit of time here in this timeline that is not so high dimensional, not so fast. And of course, again, I have absolute choice, right? But is it the highest timeline? And then, of course, as creator being, you'll see these blocks come, and all these aspects around friendship that I'm really struggling with would be blocks. It's okay to have people that are not your people. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. So, at the moment, I am trying to complete a 3D task of getting my European driver's license. Getting my European driver's license, which has been big work for me, because obviously doing something that I have already done is frustrating. Aspects around authority, aspects around huge amounts of money needing to be spent on it, aspects around trauma and PTSD from my driver's license when I was 18 years old, aspects around different language, different country, roads and places that I do not know. So that's been intense for me. And then recently coming to a space where I need to move out of the space that I call my base. So again, I'm like, okay, no base anymore. So yeah, I'm just moving through a couple of things, and within that, just trying to find a little friend or two. So yeah, this is a really raw, open and honest share. Again, the theme is here. There are always three, right? This is the Trinity. Reconnecting with God and moving to deep aspects of trust. So from the aspect of he or she, woman or man of mankind, who has been working on their consciousness, who is aware and takes accountability and responsibility for feelings, thoughts, emotions, words, actions, intentions, right? You know, to trust the path, to trust when it feels unclear. And then the teaching from the other side to those who are possibly not doing that much inner work and really bypassing emotions, suppressing, etc., etc. Perhaps a little pointer, and maybe you have begun that, and you know, blessed be, amazing. We're all working in some sort of way. We're all being challenged in some sort of way. To look at that and to look at all your actions and ask, would God find this appropriate? Would God find this appropriate? Because that is a God-led life. So no matter if you're doing the work or you're not, if you are asking that question, I feel that much clarity can come your way. So I'm going to flip that for myself as well, and sit and ask myself some questions around being here. Anyway, it's a couple of insects and stuff driving me a little crazy. I'm sending so much love, and thank you for your time, your love, and your energy. Ciao.
Hey, I wanted to add on to the video that you've just been watching. It didn't quite feel complete, and I think this is a powerful share, because what I'm going to go through today is the recognition of why this cycle has been occurring in my space, and the deep subconscious memory that I have reclaimed through deeply and with intention looking at the cycle that has caused me pain, that is bringing me into a space of feeling isolated and alienated by the masculine. And so I hope that this video in essence is an example of the accountability and responsibility to really look at oneself when one is experiencing whatever they're experiencing in their holographic field. So, you know, the part of the video you've just watched, I speak to the aspect of, you know, being one that really speaks to looking at your holographic field and knowing that anything out of resonance will drop out of that field. That your higher aspects of yourself are in control, that the God aspect is in control, and you know, it's really just the human egoic identity that wants answers, that wants clarification. We want to have a storyline in the mind that makes sense as to why certain things are happening. So one can only do that when we dive deeper. Right. What we need to look at is our traumas. So for me, in the story that I just shared, it was aspects of really struggling to find people that I can relate to from a friendship basis. What I may or may not have gone into is the aspects of narcissistic traits that I've observed in these people. Different traits for different people, but
of which one of them has been a narcissistic trait. Very, very easy to identify at a certain point in time. Sorry, I'm just getting a call. I'm going to decline that. Very, very easy to identify at a certain point in time, but wasn't so clear in the beginning. And what that allows me to do is to say, oh gosh, there's still a narcissistic aspect that resides within me, because otherwise I wouldn't have matched frequency. And this is not an easy thing to identify with, because you don't want to know yourself as a narcissist. But often what happens in healers, light workers, and empaths is it's like a textbook dream of a partnership, narcissist and empath. And I've spoken about this before, where the empath certainly holds narcissistic tendencies because they within themselves feel like they can heal anyone. But we've got to begin to look at the trauma, and what I have uncovered this week for myself is a little jaw-dropping, because obviously as a healer, it's just an identity, right? It's not who I am, it's not entirely who I am, but it's one of the archetypes that I've played, healer and facilitator. As that aspect, one would assume that I am 100% legit, ready to go, guru status, enlightened, nothing to sort out, or at least communicating to all that I am constantly doing the work, which is true. But there is so much to uncover, and sometimes our memory doesn't serve us in the way that we need to highlight things in a very obvious way, right? And this is where triggers come up. So within the story that I've just shared, the trigger aspect for me is, oh, why are these people being like this to me? Why am I receiving these people in my field? Why do I keep attracting these people? Having gone into further depth surrounding this and really looking at traumas, what I identified during this Mother's Day time is that actually what I'm doing is recreating a memory from trauma from when I was a child with my mother. Now, trauma is relative, and sometimes it is unconsciously sitting there. So if I go back into my childhood, there's no big pieces. We've all had big pieces, but there's nothing, terrifyingly, earth-shatteringly obvious. And this is why it sits in the subconscious part of the brain, uncovered and unlooked at for so long. And what I realized is, having been an only child within a household where the parents were working, my mom happened to be in hospitality, so she spent a lot of time away. I happened to be a very, very good sports person, where from the age of 5 I was training for the Olympic teams. So this was a perfect situation within my family unit, because I did gymnastics till 9 p.m. at night. Didn't really need, my parents could do their work, etc., etc. But what I realized was, there's a narcissistic element to my mother. And what happens is, in that trauma situation, is the child feels unsafe. And because my mother worked in hospitality, her nervous system was a wreck. Many people who were, not only did she work, she owned the restaurant. It was a very, very big restaurant. So her nervous system was a wreck. So I became hyper attuned and hypersensitive to every single move that she made. Every facial expression, every eye movement, every brow frown, every move that she made. And when I've been thinking about it this week, I've had memories come in of me really observing this and knowing, what mood she was in based on facial expressions, etc., etc. So in essence, what I'm saying is, as a child, I felt unsafe around this person that I really didn't spend much time with. Yes, in the conscious mind, I feel safe. She's my mom. I've got my home, etc., etc. But based on her nervous system response around me, I did not feel safe because I'm a hypersensitive child. I don't know all of the cognitive things that are going on. So I am hyper attuning to this. And what I'm doing then is adapting to the situation to make myself feel safe. All right. What then occurs from the kind of empath and healer archetype is that is hardwired in our brains. We know how to see these things because we've been training that neural pathway since childhood. So come into our adult years, we are hyper attuned to tune into that which is wrong so that we can adapt ourselves and keep ourselves safe. So come into our adult years, I walk into a room, walk into social spaces, walk into relationship dynamics, and what am I going to do? I'm going to hyper attune to that which poses a risk to me in my adult years. And of course, that which I hyper attune to is what I'm used to doing as a child, but I'm not cognitively aware of it, I'm not consciously aware of it, and so relationship begins to form. But in essence, it is the same frequency of the love that I was looking to receive from my mother, right? And so I keep picking the wrong individuals that basically pose a risk to me, that may have narcissistic tendencies, that don't have time and space and capacity for me, for my stories, nothing but their own reality, because they too are in a nervous system regulation of some sort. They too are just working through their coping mechanisms without being aware of their trauma. All right? And so here we begin to view the repeating patterns of why we keep attracting these types of people, unavailable, narcissistic, etc., in our lives. What I'm grateful to say is that once you've identified that trauma, and therefore your own coping mechanisms to feel safe, your own identified strategies of how you work, you can begin to change that, because now it is aware in the conscious mind, and now you have absolute choice. And what blows my mind about this again is that, I've been doing this work for over a decade, and here I am a decade in, having had wildly cosmic spiritual experiences, etc., but still coming back to the space of ancestral healing, and still coming back to the space of inner child healing and wounds, and still observing why at my age I'm still single, etc., why I keep seeking out friendship and relationship that is not actually in alignment with me. And so again, the higher self aspect, thank you very much, kicks that out of my reality field. Fantastic. So that's the trigger. But the mind still wants to understand. And finally, I've gotten to this place, and I don't need to feel shame about this, of going, Jesus, for a decade, I haven't known this. I haven't seen it from this perspective, And now it makes absolute sense to me. And where do I need to go for further healing is obviously inwards with myself. And obviously I can then, now there's an aspect of me that really wants to sit with my mom and begin to uncover, certain aspects around how she was when I was younger. Did it feel comfortable? Did it feel right to be so distanced from her one and only child at this part of her life? Did it, obviously it suited the dynamic, because we've all created this. So I understand why the gymnastics was in my life. I understand why high-level sports was in my life. I understand why, living an independent life as an only child from such a young age was in my life. It matches what I'm doing now. But if I wish to change it, if there are aspects within my reality that are no longer suiting me, say perhaps also diving into why am I living such a nomadic space? Why is that? Is it a representation of freedom? Because I do speak to that. And there are parts of me that wholeheartedly believe that, and that was my intention, to be free and sovereign on this planet. However, is there an aspect of that that is playing a zero-sum game, knowing from a trauma subconsciously that I'm not consciously aware of yet, knowing that this is the only game that I can play, to bounce around the world nomadically because I don't feel safe anywhere else, nor do I feel like I belong anywhere else. And so what do we receive in our holographic field? A feeling of non-belonging and a continuous cycle of movement from country to country, inevitably, where I will tick the boxes of adventure, I will tick the boxes of excitement, I will tick the boxes of exploration of Earth's unique and amazing natural wonders, but I will still feel intensely alone. And so now I'm sitting with this information and looking at it from a completely different angle, and really taking accountability to that which I want in the future, that which I want to design and create from a healthy space, from a space where I am not feeling unsafe, from a space where I'm not running away, from a space where that trauma is healed, where it is looked at, where the inner child is soothed and feels safe. From there, I'm at a blank canvas again, and I can explore sovereignty, freedom, and exploration in whichever way I want and desire. So I wanted to share this because the first message here is we are holding so much that is unseen and unknown to the five senses. And we may not have implicit memory of any of these traumas, and yet they're still sitting in your field. So here is just an awareness of, and I smile because there's a part of me going, Jesus, there's so much fucking trauma, because not only on the individual level, but on a collective scale, there's just so much to uncover. So how we can reframe that to create a space in our lives of empowered exploration of our traumas, rather than it being a story of defeat. Like there's just always traumas, and there's, planet Earth is just too much. So that's the first message I want to give. The second one is the aspect of narcissism, right? It is not comfortable to look at a narcissist in front of you and realize that it is you. And why do we do this, right? Why do we do this? So I've spoken about the relationship of empath and narcissist being this beautiful combination to learn from. But how deep do the teachings go, and are we ready to release it when we look at the narcissism within ourselves? And all it is manipulation of energy in order to make yourself feel safe, right? So do I believe I have the inherent narcissistic personality traits, like, no empathy, no compassion, never any admittance of fault? No, I don't believe that. But as an energy worker, do I have the capacity to manipulate energy? Yes. This was not my intention, and so these experiences that I've had have been very short, because I'm aware as a very powerful woman and energy worker that I can easily manipulate energy. It is no longer what I want to do, and so these experiences have been short. They're like little exam room rehashed classes that I've just had to quickly do an exam on, to be like, are you done with this lesson? Have you really received it, right? So, but I wanted you to understand the power of the one, looking at that within yourself, right? Looking at that within yourself, and from there, doing the work, you can drop the identity and be like, oh my gosh, I see it, and no, it's not me, right? So there's power in that. And I think there was a third one. Hold on. yeah, I guess, a big theme at the moment is to have no shame around this. No shame around this. There's parts of me that are like, Jesus, are you blind? But there's no shame. There's no shame. It's okay. We're all just completing cycles, ending cycles. There's so much dropping and coming to an end. So trust in your field. Do the inner work. Take accountability and responsibility, and have a bit of compassion for yourself. Trust your higher self. There's been incredible things happening to me this week in terms of just where I know it's my God self being like, no, you will not have that communication gateway open. That will not remain open for you. No. And I just had to sit and let go. So onwards and upwards in my quest, now that I have a really beautiful and deep understanding of this from a completely new perspective. As I mentioned in this other video, I don't want to be in victimizer. It's not about that. It's about responsibility and accountability. And now that my mental body knows why I do this, I can begin to observe from the witness aspect in a different way and see how this changes in my space, and understanding that now I need to self-parent to come into absolute true safety in my body. Right? So this is where I'm at, and there's a part of me that rolls my eyes and I don't want to self-parent, but this is it. Within the one, I am the mother, I am the father, I am the Christed child. And it is my responsibility, my life, my holographic field, my consciousness, my reality, my creation. So let's see what happens from this space. See how, the other aspect of this was observing how weak my boundaries have been. They are much stronger now. So there was a part of me that went into victim and said, oh, you've got no boundaries, B. No boundaries. You just let anyone in. And that may or may not be true. There's a part of me that's like, actually, your boundaries are quite strong, but maybe your need and requirement for connection was stronger. So these relationships have been short because my boundaries are stronger. It just still hurts as the empath because we still want connection, and we're inevitably left alone again. But again, with this new shift in understanding, I'm very curious to see what unfolds in terms of my networking and communication with others, and really just coming into my pillar of light in such strength, and again, just in the heart. I mean, that's what I gotta give, man. That's what I gotta offer. So I'm sending so much love. Thank you for watching any of my content. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your presence. Thank you for your life, your breath, for coexisting in this reality with me. I'm sending so much love. Ciao.